All right, 1 Timothy 4:16. What does Timothy mean? Timotheus. Tell me the etymology of that word. Who knows that? What's the two Greek words? It's compound. Timeo.
Honor.
Uh-huh.
And Theos is God.
All right, honorable to God. That's what Timothy means. Honorable to God. So Paul's writing to this. How old's Timothy about this time? You remember? How old's Timothy? Paul's a decade older than Timothy. How old's Timothy? You remember? He's a lot older than we think he is, don't he?
I say
48 to 50 years old. Okay. The elders were around 60. They really, they looked up the man when he was 60 years old. Now, what else was unusual about Timothy? What else was unusual about Timothy? He had some problems. He was a semi-invalid. And so because of that, some people looked down upon him. He had a lot of health problems. And because of his timidity, he was a timid man. Because of his health problems, people were a little overbearing to Timothy. But Timothy had received one of the gifts of God laid on hands by the apostles. And here at this time, he had a gift of prophecy, or laid on him by prophecy. Now, we don't have anything that Timothy wrote, but at this period of time, how much of the Bible was written about this period of time? How much of the Bible did they have in the New Testament? Hey, kind of, you think it. How much of it was written? Very little. Maybe the book of James, maybe the Gospel of Mark. That's about all at this period of time. So the teachers, now we had the church gifts. We had pastors, teachers, evangelists, and all these. These people were inspired to do what they did because they didn't have the Bible. Once they had the Bible, then we got the tools. We're working with these tools today. Epeke, Theautu, Kai, Te de los Kalea, Epimene, Altois, Tuto, Gar, Poyon, Kai, Theauton, Soses, Kai, Tus, Akontas, Su. You take heed. You lay hold of. You lay hold of upon yourself. And to the teaching, and you remain upon them, is what he says here. You remain upon them. Look at that first verb there, epi, eke. That comes from echo, and it comes from epi. Epi means what? Huh? Upon. Upon. Page 153 and 54 in the Analytical Greek Lexicon when you get one. That's epi, that is. And then echo, first person singular, present indicative active, but here it's eke, second person singular, present imperative active. You lay on hold of yourself to yourself and to the teaching, and you remain upon, look at this word epi there, he's just using it all over. It's a preposition, but he's using it as a prefix on these words here. This is meno, and the other one is echo. He said, you remain upon, you hold upon them. This, or doing this, yourself, you shall save, and the ones hearing you. Now, what kind of saving are we talking about? Or what type of, is this salvation or what? Is salvation a process, or is it punctiliar action? Punctiliar action is one time and it's completed, isn't it? Ephesians 2 and 8 says, for in grace ye are having been saved through faith. And where'd that faith come from? Outside. Not from you. It comes from God. Repentance comes from God. The gift of repentance comes from God. And the gift of faith comes from God. These are all gifts of God. We don't muster that up. That's something God does. Okay? This salvation is talking about here is the salvation of life. What do you do? How many people make their lives a shipwreck? Sometimes it happens, doesn't it? It just jumps on you. It just surrounds you sometimes. Your life is a shipwreck because of surrounding things. But even sometimes when it's a shipwreck, it may be an example to others. You shall save, and the ones hearing you. The ones. Now look at this word hearing there. That's what kind of a, in English, what would that be? Hearing. That's a gerund, isn't it? A continuous saying. Here it is accusative, plural, masculine, present participle active. It is a marriage, a participle is a marriage between a noun and a verb. So it's conjugated and it's declined. It's declined like a noun, but it's conjugated like a verb. So we have present tense. It's going on right now. And it tells you that the one's hearing. The one's hearing. Okay? You shall save yourself and the one's hearing you. Now let's look at 5 and 1. The duties of duties toward others. He said here what the work of a pastor was. I'll never forget one of my teachers. He died very young. He was in his 30s. He was just horrible. He went in for a heart operation back in those days. I think it was about 1976, and they went in there to do a bypass. This man was a pastor in Porterville, California. I would go up there and in the early 70s, the late 60s, and I would go and attend that seminary up there. I'd get a ride up there, and he was just everything. Just full of life, and the church was just growing, a great preacher and everything. He went in, he had blockage. And back then, you know, this was the Stone Age with medicine. He went in there and they did the bypass surgery, and he never recovered from the recovery room. He died. And in the little Bible that I have that I got from him, someplace in the Bible, he said, when I have spent myself and finished, time's roll, better from an empty purse than I have an empty soul. And boy, I'll tell you what you do with your life is really important, isn't it? What you do with it. Don't live your life for yourself. If you do, you're wasting your life. Give your life away. Give it away. I always told you can take it with you, didn't I? What I tell you, every time we dismiss this class, I say what? Go out and do something eternal. Take it with you. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time fiddling around. Do something for the Lord. 5 and verse 1, presbytero. May. Epiplexes. Ola. Parakale. Hos patera. Neoterus. Hos adelphus. He said, to an elder, not rebuke sharply. Don't rebuke an elder. And this is talking about an older person, and maybe even a ordained person in the church. Don't rebuke them sharply. What it means, don't strike them. Don't hit them. Back in these days, did people get whipped? Did they beat each other up all the time? This was commonplace, wasn't it? Don't you do that. You may not heartily rebuke, or you may not chide, or you may not strike an elder. But what kind of a but is this? Allah. What kind of but is this? There's a few of them in Greek, aren't they? But this one here is what we call a strong adversative conjunction. Allah, strong adversative conjunction. Page 15 in Analytical Greek Lexicon. If it's not written down in yours, write it down. But you plead, you exhort. And here we have the word paraklete. Remember, have you ever heard, Gary, have you ever heard of the word paraklete? Paraklete, the comforter. That's right out of Greek, paraklete. And this means, it comes from 2 Greek words, para and kallio. Okay, para means what? That means beside, and then to call. To walk alongside somebody, put your arm on them, and talk to them. That's what you do. Walk alongside, put your arm upon them, and talk to them. Plead with them as a father. how would you talk to your father? Now, you may not have had a good father. You know, my father got killed robbing a liquor store when I was 2 years old, and my mother took up with this outlaw. Real world-class outlaw. Sometimes you may not have a lot of respect for your fathers, but normally people do, don't they? Normally they do. I went to the Green Lawn Cemetery here this last year on Memorial Day or something, and I went up there and I put flowers on my father's grave. Now, he wasn't a father to me at all, pretty much. He was in Patton's War in his army. He really had post-traumatic stress disorder when he came back. Now, a lot of people came back, they just didn't live very long. He didn't live very long. He absolutely was an adrenaline junkie. Stealing cars, chasing around with women, robbing banks, robbing liquor stores. This was exciting to him. He had to have this very excitement. I remember when he was running around with Betty Davis, the movie star. He went down there and whipped her off of her feet and took off with her car and brought it home. Her black Buick. It wasn't really black, it was blue, but it was so dark it was black, looked black. And I remember that car because I was little, and I had to get somebody to put me up in it. It didn't have running boards. All the other cars had running boards. And she sent her bodyguards up there to get her car back from my dad. But I went out there and I put flowers on his grave because I knew he gave his life for this country. He may as well have got killed over there. Because he was so messed up when he came back, he was no good to anybody. Not to me or my mother or anybody. He was a shock. But you're supposed to respect your father. I do that because the man literally died for this country. That's what he did. He died for the country. You exhort and you plead with an elder just like he was your beloved father with a great amount of reverence. Younger ones as brethren. Younger ones as brothers. Brothers. Now some brothers fight a lot. But this is adelphos. What does this word adelphos mean? It tells you something, doesn't it? Brother Mike, you remember what adelphos means? Sharon?
Isn't that from the same womb?
From the same womb. Brothers from the same womb. Did Jesus have brothers from the same womb?
Yep.
Yes, he did. Did he have adelphos? Jesus literally had brothers from Mary. Now, the Catholic Church said that will say that didn't happen, but she had a bunch of kids. All right, she did. And she had boys and girls, and it names a bunch of them in the Bible. We could go into all that, but we won't right now. Younger ones, as brethren, as brothers. 5 and verse 2. Presbyteros, hos materos, neoteros, hos adelphes, en passe agneia. Now we're talking about women. Older women first, presbyteros, that means old women. Old women as mothers, matera. All right, materos, as mothers. Treat older women like they were your mothers, and younger women, neoteros, as sisters in all purity. Sisters in all purity. Now, it is very hard to live a chaste life in the world that we live in, is it not? All right? Because there are seductresses out there and there are seducers all over. Okay? And in churches too. They're the same in churches. Now, I wrote this down so many years ago. The fall of some women, becoming insolent to Christ, making Christian vows through unfavorable marriage. We do that sometimes, don't we? We find somebody that's not the right. You know, you raise girls up in church and boys up in church, and sometimes they go find somebody else in some other religion or some just pagan, so to speak. Just some pagan. You can't expect God to bless that. I mean, God does. Many times those people get saved sometimes. But how many of these young people, even they have boyfriend and girlfriend religion? You know what I'm talking about? Boyfriend, girlfriend religion? That's when a boy takes a girl and brings her to church with him, and she goes down, she makes a profession of faith and gets dipped and all that kind of stuff. And when they get married, she's off and gone, or just goes haywire after they get married. And the same thing with a girl, a pastor's daughter or whatever, and they go find these guys, and they come to church, they go down in front, they make a profession of faith, they get baptized, and in 2 or 3 years, after a kid or something, zip, they gone. The ideal situation is to go to church and marry somebody that you're raised with in church, and to watch their lives. And it's very important that you watch their mama and daddy. Because if that's a boy, the way he's going to treat you is the way he treats his mother. And he will probably treat you the way his father treats his mother. And the same thing with a girl. You will look and see how the daughter's mother and father treat each other. Because that's probably what's going to happen there too. It's just, that's what happens. Women learn to be idle. They become gossips and busybodies. Knowing the Lord's will and doing it the opposite. Doing the opposite. Older women as mothers. Yeah, you're supposed to treat older women like you would your mothers, and younger women as sisters in all purity. There are a few perks to getting old, Brother Mike. There are some. There are some perks. Now, when you're young, a young preacher up here and everything else, the girls come flocking around you like bees in the honey, and you better worry about something like that. You know, that's a problem. But when you get old, as I am, women can come up here and kiss me right in the mouth and hug me. That's as far as it's going. It's gone right there. It don't make no difference. That's one of the perks of being old. You know? And if some husband gets jealous of you, you say thank you, and then you laugh, because that's the way it is. Okay, that's just the way it is. This word agneia, chastity, modesty. No sexual or moral corruption. The society today is corrupt in and out of the church. That's the way it is, in and out of the church. Nearly impossible to live a pure life. I remember I have a set of debates by Dr. Hoyt Chastain, and he debated with a Church of Christ preacher, and the Church of Christ preacher kept bringing all kinds of stuff with him. Brother Chastain says, you're saved forever. If you went out and had an affair or did something wrong, you're still saved. You're going to learn by it. God's going to whoop you back in line. Okay? The Church of Christ people said all this stuff, and he said, and I remember Brother Chastain, he said, now, preacher, when you get up here and you do your side of the debate and everything else, when you're looking out there and some of these women are half-dressed out there, keep your mind on your sermon. Sometimes it's very hard to do that. He said, I'm 80-something years old, and it still bothers me to see this, let alone some young man. He said, chastity is very important. And a lot of women come to church half-dressed. And they come to church to seduce and to attract people. Men do the same thing, don't they? You have men seducers and you have women seductresses. And that's what happens. And what it's saying right here is learn to treat younger women like sisters. When I lived in Nevada, in Fish Lake Valley, I was single most of the time that I lived there. And I'd had some pretty bad relationships and didn't want any more. And I was a spiritual leader among the Indians up there, and I also was building a mission. And this one woman up there, now I knew her husband very well, and I thought a lot of him. She would come and hang around me like a puppy dog, follow me all over the place all the time. And she would come to my house and wouldn't go home. Well, one night I had company there, with this guy was there, and she was a beautiful woman. But you know, that was their body. Okay? It's not good. And she hung around there, and she hung around there, and she made eyes at me, and she did everything she could do, even in front of this guy. Well, I just treated her like a little sister. And when she finally left like that, the guy laughed out a big belly laugh. He said, man alive. He said, that woman's after you. And I'm sure you know that. But he said, you treated her like a little sister. I said, that's what I have to do. That's what I'm supposed to treat her like a little sister. That's the way you treat her, like a little sister. Or a way you would want your sister to be treated. Okay? 5 and 3. Keros. Tima. Tas, ontos. Keros. Widows. Keros, that's widows. Page 436 if you want to write it down there in that analytical Greek lexicon. Widows. These are women that have been abandoned. Abandoned women. Abandoned. What is a widow? This type of widow here is like a patokos in Greek. Patokos, you have poor people. A patokos is a beggar that cannot even take care of himself. Somebody has to carry him to beg. Back in those days, begging was a profession if you were disabled. It really bothers me when I see these people standing on the side of the road with these signs out there getting around a whole lot better than I am, looking for money. Panhandling is what I call it, panhandlers. I was listening to Brother Madden preach this last week. Panhandling, begging. He, you go listen to him. He's got some of them out there. I put some of these sermons out there. They're too hard for most people. In modern church society, he would infuriate the preachers, infuriate the church members. But he was so spiritual. He said, I know I'm not really earthly good. His wife, he said, my wife kept coming and telling me to buy a home. He said, that slowed me down, sister. I don't need one. He said, I had one once. He said, I wasn't happy when I had a home. He said, now that I'm doing God's work, he said, I'm happy. I don't have a home. I don't even have a car. You know, I rent this car or lease this car. It's not my car, and I just turn it back in. All I want is the miles. That's all I want is the miles. We went to the Middle East together, and I was over there with him from December to May on an archaeological tour. And while I was over there, I had a house. I had bought a house. It wasn't a very good house. I built most of it myself. You know, I was raised extremely poor in a shack with a dirt floor. And I had this house that I'd built on the same property where the shack with the dirt floor was. It was in front. So I built this house. I told him to build this house. He said, young man, when you get home, sell that home. He said, I think all they'll do to you is slow you down in your ministry. I went home. I was thinking about selling my car. I gave a lot of my tools away because I'm going to the seminary. See, I don't want anything going to slow me down. So I gave a whole lot of stuff away. I gave a set of Smith oxygen acetylene welders and the tanks and all. I owned the whole thing, and I gave them to somebody. I gave away a lot of stuff that I didn't think I needed. It might slow me down. Later on, I got a lot more stuff now. A lot of stuff. But at that time, God was wanting to know what I would give to follow Him. And so I gave that away. He finally, Brother Madden, I think it was around 1998, he got Alzheimer's. Not 95, he started getting Alzheimer's pretty bad. He was Secretary of Missions for like 18 years, taught in the seminary, was my bosom friend and like a older brother in faith. And they put out in one of the Baptist papers that they were going to try to buy Brother Madden a home so he'd have a home to live in. He had nothing. All of his 60 years in the ministry, he had nothing to show for anything in this world. So I conjured up all the money I could get, which I think was about $150, and I sent it back there, and the people in the United States and the world that loved that man so much bought him a house. Bought him a house. And he wrote, I have the letter where he wrote and thanked me. He said, it's good to have friends like you. His whole life he had had nothing. But now he had a home to die in. And he had a home for his wife to live in while he was in. His wife, as far as I know, is still alive. Still alive. How many of you ever heard of the name Benjamin Marcus Bogart? I was a real famous Baptist preacher in the last century, in the 1800s, and up till 1953 or something like that. He was one of my fathers in the faith. Ben Bogart was a very frugal man. He was hard on the students in the seminary, very hard on them. He'd go by their houses and look in their garbage can and see if they threw any food out. One of the students threw out a heel, 2 heels in a loaf of bread. He got up preached about throwing 2 heels away. You're wasting God's money and God's resources. When Ben Bogart died, he left everything he had to what they call the Bogart Press in the seminary that he built and everything. He had nothing left in this world. He didn't leave 1 cent to his children. Not a cent. And not a cent for a headstone for his grave. The students took up an offering and bought a headstone for his grave. They buried him in the graveyard. That was if you lived there, you got buried in the graveyard. But he had no headstone. But what a legacy he left behind. But he had nothing in this world. He left nothing to anybody else. He said, if I left it to my children, they might waste it. They might waste anything. And your children might waste what you have. Do they? Do children waste money? Do they throw things away frivolously and whatever? Work hard for it. Use everything you have for the glory of God. Treating one another with respect. That's what it's talking about here. Older widows as mothers, younger sisters, younger women as sisters. And verse 5 and 3. Widows honor the truly. Keros, tima, tas, ontas, keros. Widows honor. Look at that word tima there. That's the word Timothy comes from. Honor the truly. That word is an adverb there, ontos. And it means in this manner widows. Now, the widows that the Apostle Paul is talking about here were a special group. First of all, these widows had to be how old? How old did these widows have to be on this list?
60.
60 years old.
Yeah.
All right. And they had to have no children, no grandchildren, no close friends or anything. And they had to be in full employment of the church. You remember what the deacons and the pastors were? Ordained. You ordained deacons and pastors. The deacons. Now, women can deacon, all right, but, and this is some of them right here that are deacon. These women here are deacon, these widows. What does a deacon mean? Diaconia. What's a deacon? Stir up dust, work. All right. Now, these women are working in a capacity of the church, and they're enrolled like they're ordained on this role. Okay? Now, they're not ordained, so to speak, like men deacons are. Women can deacon, but they are not ordained. The office of deacon is for males. And it tells us that. The office of a pastor, episcopos, is men, not women. Now, we got a lot of women out there preaching. We got a lot of women deacons in different churches, but that's twisting the scriptures a little bit. These widows were employed by the church, and they were treated like they were ordained widows. Now, it starts telling us everything about these widows, what kind of qualifications they have. 5 and verse 4. They, tis, kera, tekna, ekgona, Eke, Monthon, Toson, Proton, Ton, Idion, Oikon, Eusebion, Kai, Moabos, Adodidonai, Tois, Proggonois, Tuto, Gar, Eston, Apodecton, Enopion, Tu, Thiu. Let's look at this verse. Now that first little A there, that A, it looks just like it would in Greek, doesn't it? Or in English. Epsilon, iota, looks like just like EI. And it's spelled just like that, I. Say I. I or A. A. This A here is a first-class conditional particle. Now what is a conditional in English? If. Now there are 4 classes of conditional particles in Greek, and this is the first-class conditional particle. And this first-class conditional particle is that the condition is determined as fulfilled. So how do you translate this? It's not if, is it? What should it be? It should be since. It's a statement, a fact. Since. Or assuredly, but since any widow, children, or grandchildren, we have the word tekna and egona. By the way, this word ekgona there is the only time it's used in the New Testament. Do you know there's no word for grandfather or great-grandfather or anything in Hebrew, is there? No. Everybody's your father. The father of the father of the father. My great-great-grandfather was Sam Paul, the real Rooster Cogburn character. And if I was a Hebrew, I'd call him my father. Sam Paul, the wild marshal of Indian Territory. Here, it uses the word in Greek of grandchildren. She has. Let them learn. Let them keep on learning. Firstly, their own houses to show piety. If she has any children or grandchildren, let them take care of her. The word Eusebion there means what? Eusebion. We have what we call a church father by the name of Eusebius, don't we? What does this name mean? It means to be careful, to show care. All right, to show care, to show pity. And to give back. Amoibos. And here we have another word that's only used one time in the New Testament. This is it right here. Amoibos. That means to give back, like for like. And then we have another word to give back here. Apodinone. That's present infinitive active here. To give back. To give back, like for like, to give back. He doubles it. He uses 2 different words to describe this. Let them give back what that mother did for them when they grew, when they were raised. To the forebears. The word forebears means their ancestors. It comes from the word pro and ganois. Where does the book Genesis, the name of the book Genesis, where does that come from? The word Genesis. What is the word Genesis in Hebrew? It's not Genesis, is it? The book Genesis. Bereshit, which means what? Beginnings. Beginnings. Or eternities. All right? And we get the word Genesis from the Greek Septuagint, don't we? And here is the word that comes from progenitor. What is a progenitor? We get a word progeny right out of this, progeny. The forebears. For this, it is acceptable. Apodecton. It's something that you can latch on to. There's something that you ought to touch. There's some things you should not touch. And other things that you should touch. Okay? But this here is acceptable. Down in the presence of the God. Down in the presence of the God. 5 and verse 5. A, de, ontos, kera, kai, memo, nomene, el pican, epitheon, kai, prosmene, kais, de sis in, kai, tes, pros eukais, niktos, kai, hemeros. Now we're going to see what kind of woman this is, this widow. Widow indeed. This one that they're going to enroll on the role of the church as a full employed church widow. This woman is going to, this is what she is. Now, how do you make a deacon? What do you do with a deacon? You just take somebody and pick him out and start and ordain him? What does Paul say about a deacon? What is deacon supposed to be? What kind of character? You remember, young lady, what kind of character he was supposed to be? Or a deacon? Penny?
Supposed to be hardworking.
He's supposed to be a hard worker already. You don't ordain him to make him a deacon. He's a deacon first. Make sure that he's deacon before you ever make a deacon out of him. You don't try to make a deacon out of somebody and hope that he'll be a deacon. If he's a deacon, then ordain him as a deacon. Now, women ought to deacon also, but they aren't ordained as deacons. It talks about the qualifications, and the qualifications of deacon are the same, just like the same pastor. They're supposed to be a husband and one wife. Not supposed to have 3 or 4 wives. Did they have 3 or 4 wives like that? Yeah. They practiced polygamy, but the deacons and the pastors were supposed to be one woman man. The church wasn't going to. The church supported them. Did you know that? And the church didn't want to support a guy who had 4 wives. That's what it's talking about. I mean, we bring it down here today, and a pastor's has got to be somebody that's never been divorced. He's only been married one time. They go on and on and on. This old Baptist tradition, you know. That's not from the Bible, that's from tradition. But the widow, look at that, what it says, heyday ontones. Now what is that hay there? What is that hay? What about this hay? Brother David, what is hay there? What are the 3 definite articles in Greek? Ho is what? That's masculine. Okay. To is what? Neuter. Okay. And then hay is what? Feminine. So now we have a definite article here, but we have a practical substantive that's there that we don't see. Practical substantive is a ghost person. And grammatically in Greek it says, but the widow indeed. But the widow indeed. Now this hay here describes that kera over there. But you can say, but the widow, indeed widow, and having been left alone, desolate. This is nominative, singular, feminine, present, or participle, perfect, and passive. Perfect participle. It's something that's been done. Having been left alone. She has set her hope upon the God. This woman's left alone. And she set her hope, epitheon, upon God. She doesn't think anything else about except for God. These are unusual people in the world today. You know anybody like this in the world today? Not very many, huh? Very rare. This is a rare commodity today. Brother Madden, his sermons that I put out there on the website are out of date. They're out of date. He has a religions from hell. Religions right out of hell. Hellish religions. He said, and he uses some of these illustrations. He said, I see these hell-bound, hellish. And then he uses the word bastard preachers. He says things like that. You know, he's allowed to say, now what is a bastard? According to the book of Hebrews. Illegitimate child. That's what he meant. He said, "We'll get up there in front of the congregation, they'll pull out a $50 bill and lay it out there, and I'll say, you match it. Oh, I'm going to tithe and double and triple tithe this month, and you do the same thing. And wrangle and panhandle the congregation." He said, right on now. When I pastored, they didn't have an offering plate in the church. Did you know that? We paid for everything cash. We didn't take up offerings. If somebody came to that church, where's the offering plate? We don't have one. I want to give money. I said, well, you're not a member of the church. I want to give money anyway. I said, well, there's the treasurer over there. Go give it to her. You know what God people is going to give without you breaking their arms. You know that? If you got some pet project that you want to do, Better get your head straight first and see if that's what God wants to do. All right? See if that's what God wants to do. That got me. And I hadn't heard him preach this kind of stuff for a long, long time. I got it out there. Whether Phillips ever cow in Texas and the whole half of the world, I do not know, but it's there. It's good for the world to see how people felt about God 50 years ago. She has set her hope upon God, and she continues in the petitions. That word petition there means binding your mind to God. How many of you prayed 3 or 4 hours this last week? Just praying. This is the kind of woman this was. The woman that goes to prayer. And a lot of people say, well, that's wasting a lot of time. I could get a lot of stuff done in that 3 or 4 hours. I could be out doing something. I could be, instead of praying for somebody, I could go out and do something and help them. Prayers are very important. Brother Madden was talking about this old colored preacher, he said. This old colored preacher. Old Negro preacher. He said he was real, he had a black church. And the church was just filled plumb up. And the guy was sort of almost illiterate. And Brother Madden asked him, he said, brother, how do you fill this church up like that? How do you keep these people coming? How do you preach the messages that draw these people to you like that? He said, well, he said, on Saturday night, he said, I praise up. I praise up and praise up, and I studies up for Sunday. And he said, on Sunday morning, he said, I gets up real early, and I praise up and praise up and praise up and studies up. And then I get up and I preach up. He said, I get up, I speak up, I shut up, and I sit down. I say what I'm going to say. He said, I tell them what I'm going to say, I tell it, and then I told them what I told them I was going to say. And I sat down and let God do the rest of it. Because I prayed up. I prayed up. I prayed for all those people in the church. The petitions. And in the prayers. The word petitions here means to bind your mind to God. Now we have the word kai tes pro eukes. What does that mean? What does this one mean? This means to bend, it means to humble yourself before God. Here we have to bind your mind to God. That comes from Deo. And now we have the word that means to bend your knee, to be humble before God. To be humble before God. Night and day, this woman has done this. She's got her mind on God. She's in a constant state of prayer. And she's humbling herself before God. Niktos, and our word night comes right out of that word. Niktos and night, that's the same word in English. Night and day. 5 and verse 6. Hey, day, spata losa. Sosa, teth naked. All right. But the widow, now here we have hey, see that word hey? That's a nominative singular masculine, definite article. Now there's nothing there after that, is it? But you know what's there? It's kairos. The Greeks say you have to have enough sense to know that there's a practical substantive here and say, but the widow, having lived herself in riotous living in a Garden of Eden. By the way, this word is used 2 times in the New Testament, here and in James 5 and 5. Sharon, could you look up James 5 and 5 over there for us and come up here and read that in just a few minutes? Having spot lusa, having lived goldenly, gold-plated life. What kind of gold? What's a gold-plated life? Today it would be a Rolls Royce or a Mercedes and a fancy gated community with pearls around her necks and in her ears and rings of gold on each finger. Gold finger, as James called it. Gold finger comes in the church. That's what he said, literally. Gold finger comes in the church. Somebody that's got rings that's stacked on their fingers where you can't see anything but the gold and the jewels. If she has lived luxuriously, do you remember what the word is in Hebrew for this? Eden. Eden. Eden means what? pleasure and delicacies. A woman that has been used to eating all types of delicacy food. Of course, now, you wouldn't have eaten this back in those days, but lobster, king crab, salmon for every dinner, luxurious things, luxurious pastries and dainties. And they're all cut in bite size like some master chef had cut it. That's what it means. Having lived in dainties, living she has died. Are there women like this? Have you seen women like this that just live like this and they're on the make until the day they fall in the casket? Sharon, you want to bring that up here to me and read that? What it says there in the book of James? The book of James.
5:5.
Huh?
5:5.
Yes. 5 and verse 5.
You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered innocent men who are not opposing you.
That's right. Not today, what kind of person would that be?
Like that.
Some big CEO that had just sliced the heads off of people.
That Leona, that Helmsley or whatever owned all those hotels was
Yeah.
supposed to be
Yeah.
such a.
Just like that, people that have cut people's throats.
We don't care.
What happened with John D. Rockefeller? I hate to say this, but he was a Baptist. You know how many lives of people that he killed doing and getting his fortune? How about Carnegie? Andrew Carnegie. And J.B. Morgan and all of these. Rockefeller had a hard heart. Now we have this old Presbyterian, we have Carnegie, we have Andrew Carnegie. When he got up there so far in his life, he looked back over his life and he went to church and he said, Pastor, I have killed people. I have murdered masses of people to get my wealth. I have done this. What can I do to make up for humanity what I have pilfered and stolen? He said, I feel like a thief and a murderer. Well, he was. He said, not one thing did I ever get honestly. I stole and cheated and corrupted every way that all of my millions were made by corruption, by lying and cheating and stealing and finagling. He said, one thing America needs at this time, America didn't even have public schools at this time, basically. He said, put libraries in so every child of the people that you destroy, they can get an education for free by going and reading these books. And then old Rockefeller looked down upon him. They used to send gifts back and forth to each other at Christmas and things. Carnegie would send Rockefeller a bottle of Scotch whiskey. Because he knew he wouldn't drink. He's a Baptist, teetotaler. They'd send gifts to each other that they know they wouldn't use. Rockefeller got to being jealous of Carnegie. J.P. Morgan, bought him out. And so he's going to spend his money and he's going to give, and he has all these giveaway foundation. He starts colleges and everything. He starts all of these different things. He has all these giveaway programs and things because he's trying to make up for what he did. What terrible things he did in life. So John Rockefeller, he said, I'm going to give more money than he did. So he sets up the Rockefeller Foundation to give away. But how did this is blood money, people. This is blood money. These people didn't live like that. This woman over here, she lived like this. This one widow over here, she's dead while she is alive. Now 5 and verse 7. Hai, tauta, harangele, hina, anet pi lame toy. Osen. And these things you charge. Pretty hard sermon tonight, huh? You charge, you continue to charge. Para angele. It means from para and angelos. What's angelos? What's envelope?
Messenger.
That's a messenger. What's power mean? Beside message. And so this means the message was Kermit with comfort and what? Conviction. To send this message with comfort and conviction. In order that above censor, so no one can take hold of you. Be untouchable. Timothy, you're a cripple, you're a sick man, and you're young, and people that they don't respect you many times. But he said, do all of these things right. So the things that you do and the things that you lead this church in, that no one can touch you. No one can touch you. He may be able to. Third person singular present subjunctive active. What's that subjunctive mode there mean, Sharon?
It's volitative.
Okay, it's volitative, that nobody may be able to do that. Who does that depend upon? Timothy. It's going to come from Timothy's own volition. We'll do one more verse tonight. We started late. We'll do this 5 and verse 8. A day, tis ton idiom, kai malista, oikeon, u pro noete, tain, piston, nete, kai eston, pistoi, heron. But since anyone of his own, especially household, not he thinks ahead of time, provides for. The faith he has denied, and he has worse than an unbeliever. If someone does not provide for his own household, he is worse than an unbeliever. And then verse 5 and 9 next week, where we're going to start, we were 4:16 through 5:8 tonight. Now, do you have any questions? Penny, you got any questions tonight? All right. How old is a widow supposed to be?
60.
To be 60 years old. What else? What else are the requirements for one of these to be enrolled like an ordained
Work
deacon?
for the church.
What?
No family.
No family? What else?
Nobody to support.
That if she had children, she's supposed to raise them right. Okay. That she's supposed to be a woman of prayer and a woman of humility. So that we'll come back and look at the rest of the things about this widow next week. Thank you for your attention. Go out and do something eternal so you can take it with you.
So
Yes.
these widows who work, I mean, did they do like the cooking for the?
They cook for the church.
I mean, they.
But see, now you have to realize, they cook for the other widows.
Yeah.
They cook for the orphans. They cook for the people that are sick. They did all these things. They did this. That's what they did. They made a full employment of this every day. And this hadn't been for just a little while. This was whenever she became a widow, she was that way always. And she attended discipleship classes.
She went on
And she set up the table.
Wednesday night. She went.
Yeah, Wednesday night she went and she set up the table. She did all these things. These are true widows, widows of modesty, widows of honesty. All right. Anything else? No. Let's have a word of prayer then. Brother Mike, you want to dismiss us in prayer, brother?
Father, we thank you for this time that you've given us. We thank you for the fellowship. We thank